Okay, so I always wanted to go to San Francisco, but I never owned a car, and I never had enough money to take a plane. So luckily, California is building a high-speed rail from LA to San Francisco. The California high-speed rail is a bullet train that will take passengers between San Francisco and LA in about 2.5 hours. It will be funded by a mix of state and federal taxes as well as private investments. The total project, based on the 2012 business plan, will cost around $68 billion and will finish construction in 2030. My claim is that the California high-speed rail will pay for itself within 20 years. Now, the skeptics of the project don't believe that the rail will be able to pay for itself at all. I will prove to you that it will be able to pay for itself through both direct ticketing and through indirect economic activity and taxes. To find out how much the direct ticketing will pay for within a year, you first have to look at annual ridership. One way of doing that is to look at other high-speed rail networks. First, we'll start with China. As Yunchun Wang of Quartz reports that China has about 485 million annual riders on their high-speed rail, or about 1/3 of their population. He also states that their total rail ridership is about 2 billion a year, about twice their population. Another country to look at is France. The California High-Speed Rail Authority, which is the planner of the California Rail Project, states that the French high-speed rail system serves a combined 15 million people and generates 31 million annual riders. Now, California will have a population of about 48 million in 2030. So if California follows China and France, then the annual ridership will be about 90 million people a year. With tickets to cost around $81 one way, the expected revenue will be about $7.3 billion annually, which with that alone, the rail will be able to pay for itself within 10 years. But the High-Speed Rail Authority is only basing their annual ridership to be between 20 to 32 million people. So with those figures, the annual revenue with the $81 ticket price will be between $1.6 to $2.6 billion. And so with just the direct funds, the rail will be able to pay for itself within 25 to 41 years based on the authority's projections. Now for the second part, the indirect funds. Indirect funds are the increase in taxes that come from the increase in economic activity. President Obama states, a major new high-speed rail line will generate many thousands of construction jobs for several years, as well as permanent jobs for rail employees and increase economic activities for the destinations that these trains serve. Now, the High-Speed Rail Authority states that connecting Los Angeles and San Francisco will generate 66,000 direct jobs annually for 15 years during construction. And the Phase 1 blended system will generate 2,900 permanent operation jobs. They also state that the increased economic activity associated with development and implementation of the high-speed rail system could indirectly generate up to 400,000 additional long-term permanent jobs statewide. Now, the average California salary is about $52,000, which means that there will be an increase of about $20 billion a year economically due to the increase in salaries from the rail project. With an average income tax in California of about 9.3%, that means there will be an increase in taxes of about $2 billion a year, and due to the economic activity that increased. So to sum it up, from direct ticketing, the rail will be able to get $1.6 to $2.6 billion a year, and through indirect taxes, there will be about $1.9 billion that will help pay for the rail system. So combined, that's around $3.6 to $4.6 billion. So the full system of $68 billion will be able to pay for itself within 14 to 19 years, which proves my claim that the high-speed rail will be able to pay for itself within 20 years.
Okay, the proposition is clear. I think it's pretty obvious that there's a controversy on this subject. The preview needed to be a little bit sharper, but in the body of the speech, it makes a little bit more sense. And when you got to the review at the end, in the summary, I think that it's very clear what the structure was. Internally, the signposts are pretty solid. Your evidence, I think, starts off with some comparative examples for the purpose of making an inference. I think the examples are fine. They illustrate your point pretty well. What's going to be required is some demonstration that those examples will in fact be comparable. There's a lot of assumption built in that argument. I suspect that that's where a lot of the refutation will come into play by the respondent. I had to make a joke about the first thing that you said, because you said you never had enough money for a car or for a ticket to fly to San Francisco. And I'm thinking about the ticket prices. You mentioned it's going to be $81 flying, to ride on the train. So one of the comparisons will be whether or not flying there would be just as economically viable. And that's one of those places where there's some challenge on whether or not a financial need is going to exist. I don't know what China and France are like with competing public transportation systems, whether they have the same kind of airlines and freeways and highways and automobiles and numbers that we have here, but you are competing for riders, and that's one of the big differences that I think is going to argue or be a question about whether or not your examples are in fact going to be comparable. So I think that that's an issue that needs development. I thought the rail authority numbers were pretty clearly indicated. Your explanation on the second point about the secondary type revenues that come as a result of economic activity, they're basically explained. Some of the numbers are interesting. The source that you're quoting is the rail authority themselves, so that seems a little problematic to me, that the organization that is responsible for putting this together is giving the proof that it's going to be viable, and the research on that I think needs to be independent, and all we're getting is conclusions from them. So there's some questions about the evidence there, but I thought that you built a reasonable argument for the claim that you're making. And it's generally presented pretty effectively. Like I said, I did like the summary at the end of the speech. I think that helps organize and make the point pretty effectively at the end. All right. Thank you.